Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. And I've got one of my favorite guitar players, one of my favorite bands, who is Sean McVay. He's the founding member, guitarist from King Buffalo. They're a great stoner rock band. Is that like, is the cat? I hate to say category. Is that like, they're like a really good psychedelic blues rock band, but is that what everybody calls you, stoner rock? I hate to.
We get called a lot of stuff. It's funny. People think we're all, we get compared to a lot of bands. So that's a good thing. And
yeah.
we think too.
So here's the deal. If you like hard rock, old school, fuzz, good sound, good tunes, blues, psychedelic, listen to King Buffalo. And you should, because they're one of my favorite bands, and I want you to check them out. All righty, a couple of quick messages. Number one, thank you, Nick DeSalvo, for connecting us. Nick DeSalvo, of course, lead guitar player from Elder, another great band. And make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com/subscribe, and you can subscribe to the show on YouTube and check out the actual audio as well, subscription. All right, Sean McVay grew up in a small town in upstate New York called Scottsville, which is just outside of Rochester. Played trumpet in the school band and sang in the school choir. After high school, he attended SUNY Fredonia, that's State University of New York or Fredonia, as a sound recording technology major. His focus at that point shifted a little bit away from guitar. Would still practice and play guitar, but he became more interested in production and got into a lot of different styles of music outside of guitar-based stuff, which is pretty common for most professional musicians. Formed King Buffalo in 2013. They initially formed, got a really cool story. They initially formed the band to fulfill some tour date obligations that another band that Sean was in had already booked, but they couldn't do. The band had some fallout, so they had to make up these gigs. So what happened was, instead of learning the songs they were supposed to play from the band that imploded, they started jamming, writing their own stuff, and within a month they had their own demo because they had something that was working. They hit the road immediately, and that first tour was them and All Them Witches. I know them from somewhere. I've got some of their stuff. Piling into Sean's uncle's RV that he had lent to him. Since then, King Buffalo's released 2 albums, 2 EPs, and they're about to release another EP and go on tour real soon. And we'll talk about that. Dude, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I read this in your bio. Your mom randomly buys you a guitar at age 15. And I like what you said. You're like really respectful. Like, the moms always know what they're doing or something like that. It was like a very cool comment. What was that about?
Well, it's kind of funny. Like, I never had asked for a guitar or anything, but, she knew I was into music. I was always like the kid, when I was really little, banging on pots and pans, just singing, being obnoxious, and my uncle had a guitar. And so every time we'd go over to his house, I would just be I was interested in it. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anything about it, but I was like, I'd try to play it. And every time I was around when I was like, that seems like a fun thing. And when I was 15, that was my Christmas present that year, was that Ibanez beginners combo of that really goofy the GAX 70 or whatever electric guitar and that tiny little 8-inch speaker practice amp. And then it changed my life. I went from like playing video games, being like a normal kid in the rural suburbs, to now I'm spending 5 hours a day playing guitar to whatever record and CD I wanted to. So
it was pretty immediate as soon as you got it.
Yeah. I mean, I remember as soon as I got it, I'm like going through all the knobs. Like, I plugged it in right away, going through all the knobs and buttons on it. And it had, the overdrive channel on the little crappy practice amp. And I just like turned everything up and I hit that button. And I was like, oh man, it sounded like Hendrix, Like, I thought it was so cool. And then I'm sure my mom and my brother were just like, oh my God. But
that's really cool, fun, man.
Yeah.
And nobody in the family, your uncle played guitar, but nobody like did music as a career, right?
No. And even like my uncle dabbled. He was like a hobbyist, like he wasn't very active playing guitar. He was into the concept of guitars and played guitars. And yeah, I remember when he got it because there was a music store that opened up in Rochester, and they had their big like grand opening parking lot sale or whatever. And he came back and he had this guitar, and I was like, oh, it was an Ibanez sort of like Strat copy. Mm-hmm. I was like, that's weird, And so, yeah, we're not really a musical family, but my mom was very supportive of me and my brother's artistic endeavors. He ended up pursuing more visual art, but I think she did have a dream that we would be like a brothers, like a family band. He also got a drum set, which I ended up sort of playing more than he did eventually. But yeah, it didn't work out as a family band, but everything worked out.
That's really nice though that your mom did that. By the way, your audio sounds great, man. Thank you for setting that up.
It's literally thank Tim Cook, I guess.
Yeah, man. It sounds awesome. I don't know what you're doing. So what prompted you? You went to school to study sound engineering instead of music. And obviously I know you do all the engineering or a lot of the mix for King Buffalo. So it's obviously helped you, but what prompted you to study engineering? Hold on. Do you hear my cat, by the way?
No, actually, I'm not hearing it. Oh my
God. Like he's so loud. Holy smokes. I'm surprised you can't hear him like in Buffalo without the mic. What prompted you to study engineering as opposed to flat out, music theory or something like that?
Well, so I actually didn't even want to go to school. I was your classic sort of lazy, I just wanted to play guitar, man. I didn't really want to do anything academic. But my mom said, just go check out this open house. You have to at least apply to one college. You don't have to go, you just have to apply. Fredonia's got a really great music program. We went, and I had no aspirations or anything, but they were just doing tour stuff. And it was like, well, this is the recording program. And they had this great studio. And one of the professors was Dave Fridman, who is, great producer and engineer in his own right, did like all the Flaming Lips stuff and
I didn't know that
stuff. So I was like, well, I guess that's cool. I could dig making records. I like records. I could dig making records. So I'll kind of follow through with it. I'll audition and yeah, their program is a little unique to like a Full Sail or a lot of like strictly audio production based programs, where I was actually a music major. So I did have to do music theory, trumpet performance. I had to be a part of the trumpet studio and take piano and voice and then also do the physics, calculus, and audio classes.
Oh, so you did take music?
Yeah, I did have to be. I was technically a music student, but you only had their requirements were a little less. So instead of like having to do 4 years of trumpet, you only had to be like a full music major for 1 year, and then after that, the course load shifted to more
audio studio.
Yeah, and physics and electronics and stuff.
How come you didn't play guitar? Were you more into trumpet then?
Well, I didn't own an acoustic guitar, and the only guitar they offered was classical guitar.
Oh, okay.
And
enough
so
said.
I didn't know where to begin with that.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I knew how to play the trumpet and I could sing. I could do these things. So I auditioned and was the worst trumpet major in the entire school for sure.
You're not any worse for it today, man.
No, I mean, they definitely just gave me my D in my trumpet courses just to get me through, because they knew I was like, yeah, I'm not really into being a trumpet player. They're like, yeah, we know. Get out of my trumpet program and go do your audio stuff.
That's fun. Where's Fredonia? Is that in Rochester?
No, it's south of. It's like a little southwest of Buffalo.
South. Okay, I actually went to Binghamton for 2 years.
Okay, yeah. So it's a few hours away, but it's it's pretty close to Lake Erie.
Okay.
An old big snow belt in southern Buffalo area.
Very cool. So then you studied in London for half a senior year. That must have been great. I was curious, what was that like, and did you learn anything from that experience? And what was that? Was it like a program or something?
It was, a study abroad program.
Foreign exchange.
It wasn't even an exchange. It was, you could go and they had a list of schools that you could sort of spend a semester at or a year. And I don't know, I just kind of wanted to travel. I guess I thought it seemed exciting. And it was definitely a bit of a culture shock in a good way. I grew up in a really small town. Right. Fredonia was a very small, it's just a tiny college town.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden I'm in one of the, biggest cities in the world.
In London.
London. And I'm just, figuring out how to take trains everywhere. And, it was pretty cool.
That is cool.
And yeah, it was a really good time. It was kind of almost a semester off. Like the academic side of it was really not, I didn't really do much, but it was
But
just
you probably
neat to
got
see
so
those things.
much out of that. Like just traveling is just so good for you, you know, meeting and learning how to meet people and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely felt like it sort of changed my perspective on a lot of things. You know, I remember when I came back and I was just kind of like, oh yeah, all the things that like we all cared about at this tiny little college town is like really just bullshit. You know, like I
That's
just
cool.
felt, you know, like all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, none of this matters really. Like, you know, there's an entire massive world out there, and like what so and so is doing a couple blocks, you know, it just changed everything. Like all of a sudden everything expanded.
That's cool. Do you eat beans on toast now?
Yeah, I loved the English breakfast, man. That was great.
That's so, my wife's from the UK and she still eats like it's, you know, like wartime. She eats beans on toast, jacket potatoes and beans like pretty
Yeah,
much almost every day.
yeah,
It's
it's a good,
quite
cheap,
funny.
easy meal.
Yeah, man, it's really funny. Um, have you been back there? Did you ever go back?
Only, I mean, we've toured through Europe a
That's
couple times,
awesome.
and so we've only been to London, I think twice since then, which
Yeah,
was, you know, 10 years apart.
that's
So
really cool though.
yeah,
Did you do festival runs out there?
yes, both times were for Desert Fest, I believe. Um, I know the last one was for Desert Fest London.
That's great, man.
Yeah, it was
That's a
really
pretty
cool.
good accomplishment that you get to play, you know, good sized festivals like that, you know, coming over from America.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Europe in general has a really great uh, audience for psychedelic rock music. So,
They actually have a great audience for everything. I have people from every genre. And I think it's because, from what I understand, um, they're not so interested in what have you done for me lately. They're just happy to have you come out and do what you're good at. It's not, you know, you don't need to be the hot, you know, the hot kid on the block, so to speak, or you don't need to be in the charts now. You just need to, you know, perform and do what you do well at. And I think it's very, very appreciated for some reason.
yeah, I don't know, and they definitely treat artists really well over there. It's always a great experience
That's
being
cool,
over
man.
there. Yeah.
Glad you got to do that. All right. So after college, you went through a period of time where things weren't going particularly well work wise, and you came to some interesting conclusions, including one that said, this is a first. I didn't want to take a job that I could view as a career. All right, this is famous. This is going to be the quote for your interview, by the way. I wanted a job that I hated.
Yeah.
So I wanted you to talk about that time frame after school and what was or what wasn't going on, and like why you made some of those decisions and the net lesson that you learned from all that.
Well, after I graduated college, I moved back to Rochester, and I started working at a local recording studio. And it was, you know, it was a really tough time to be an aspiring audio engineer. Home recording was really taking off then. And so the market had kind of just totally dropped out as far as recording studios go. But I did learn a lot. It was interesting. I was doing actually a lot of classical music and a lot of hip hop. But it was really a struggle to pay the bills. Like I was really, really, really low on money.
Were you living on your own or with your folks or with
I
your
was
mom?
with my folks at my mom's house for a while.
Right.
And then eventually, you know, I was like, okay, I can get an apartment, but it was still really tough.
Yeah.
And it was just to the point where the environment there wasn't necessarily, like, I wasn't thriving, you know, it was just kind of very stressful. It wasn't a good environment. So I left, and then I was sort of freelancing all sorts of different stuff.
Just hustling to bring some bucks in.
Yeah, I was working for a band that was friends of mine, and they wanted to make a new record, and so they just kind of hired me as like their in-house engineer. They wanted to do it at their own small home studio.
Sure.
But none of them really had audio like expertise, so they wanted me to come in and sort of help out. I did that for a while. That was great until they kind of disbanded mid-project, and which is, you know, it happens all the time.
And I'm sure they prepaid you in advance for everything, so you're all set, right?
Actually, yeah. Actually,
Oh, they did?
No,
I was being
yeah,
sarcastic.
Well,
I can't.
no. Like they didn't. They were great. Like they never.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's like a miracle.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it kind
Wow.
of like we kind of knew it was going to happen. Like they kind of changed what the project was
Okay.
going to be. So it all like it was totally fine. But yeah, and then it was, you know, odd jobs doing like construction, manual labor, which I had done throughout high school and college in the summers
Sure.
and stuff. So, and then it was, you know, kind of like a crossroads. Like, well, do I get, you know, my mom's like, well, you should like apply to, you know, radio stations, TV stations. I'm like, well, I didn't really want, I knew I wanted to do music. Like I wanted to be like I wanted to be a guitar player. I wanted to be in a band. I wanted to tour. I wanted to do the rock and roll thing. And so knowing myself, if I was to take a job that like, you know, had a good salary, you know, everything, like I would want to work really hard, and I would feel bad. Like I couldn't be like, hey, I'm leaving for a month.
Bye. To go on tour. Yeah.
You know, like I would have been stressed out. And so I ended up taking a job working for like one of the big box retail companies.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, I'll work for you. And which ended up, you know, I actually worked for them for like 7 years. But it was because I could come and go whenever I wanted. It was never, I never asked for time off to go on tour. It was, I'm going on tour. That's my priority. I'll be gone for a month. If I still have my job when I come back, cool. If not, I'm letting you know now so you can, you know, and
okay.
It worked out. So until I got to, yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead. Until
the touring became so much, you know, there was like 3 or 4 years in a row where it was between like 3 and 5 months a year I was on the road.
Right.
It was like, okay, like we kind of can't do this anymore. And I was like, yeah, totally cool.
Yeah.
Everything's, you know, and went separate ways. And luckily the band had been picking up enough by then that I was like, I think I can make that work, you know.
So when you say sorry, you
no,
finished?
Go ahead. Yeah.
So when you said I wanted a job I hated, I understand that you didn't want to get tied to something that you would like because you would commit to it and it might stray you off your course.
Yeah. And I just didn't want to be like, I wanted the band to be the priority. I wanted music to be my priority. I didn't want to feel tied down to Rochester. You know, I knew I also was like, well, I might want to move out of here. I don't want to like set roots right now. Which, you know, I tend to be very like diligent about what I'm doing. And I know if I had a good job or something that I was really excited about, that I would have really struggled to just pick up and go if I needed to, or, you know, the opportunity came up.
No, I totally get it. So a couple of questions. Number one, you obviously have a great work ethic. Where did you get that from? Why do you have it? One of the two.
I don't know. I think I definitely got that from, I have a pretty small family.
Right.
So I spent a lot of time with my uncle. He was a Marine. He was, you know, but he's also one of those like, you know, suck the marrow out of the bone of life type guys. Really interesting guy. And so, you know, working alongside him, just doing whatever project he decided to do at the time. And for my stepdad, doing construction, like manual labor stuff. He was very much a hard worker. And so, I don't know. I guess that's where I came from. I don't know. I just like to do it. When I'm doing something, I tend to go too hard to the point where like, hey, it's 8 o'clock at night. I haven't eaten anything today, you know, because I've been working, and but yeah.
Well, the other thing is you were pretty young when you came to this conclusion. That is really impressive that you had the wherewithal and the awareness really to think this whole thing through. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it was that I did have it. It wasn't right after college. I had that studio job, and I thought like, this is going to be the path I was going to go down. And so it took a couple of years. I think it was about 3 years of doing that before I was like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. And that's when I was really like, yeah, okay, I'm not I'm not going to take some sort of job that'll just be okay to put money on the table. You know?
Yeah, but that in your mid-20s to come to that conclusion, that I think that's, man, all the respect in the world to you. That's really difficult for most people. Certainly, I couldn't have done that. I can tell you right now. But and then to have the courage to execute on that, and also to have the passion to know where your kind of heart was on this stuff. So that's really, I give you a lot of credit for putting all that together.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. It's funny. I think it wasn't that hard of a decision, especially because I was already so broke. So, it was, you know, like it wasn't like I was giving up something. You know?
Yeah, the mansion.
Yeah.
I get it, but still, but no, I totally get that, because it's like someone once said to me, "You take more risks when you're broke because, hey, what do you have to lose?"
Yeah, totally.
But the awareness to know I need to not be tied there because my work ethic won't allow me to kind of like do a shitty job or half-ass it. You know, I think that's what's really impressive, man. Very much so, for sure, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Okay. So during that time, you had another thing good come out of that, was you learned a lot musically from playing in a variety of bands, some good and some not good. Can you maybe elaborate on some of the situations and talk about the lessons that you learned and some of the clarity that helped give you later on, or about future decisions?
Well, I would say definitely the big thing that I got out of that was sort of learning how to be in a band, you know, like how to lead, also know when to step back and not lead, and learning how to collaborate more. You know, I definitely have some moments that I'm not necessarily proud of with some of those old projects where,
Sure,
you know, I maybe put my foot down too hard about a specific thing that, looking back, I'm like, man, I was a total dick. Like I would have told me to fuck off if I was in that band, you know?
Yeah.
And so like learning that sort of thing, learning how to be organized, and learning like how to prioritize that, you know, as opposed to, you know, how much beer is in the practice space, you know, like all the stupid pitfalls, you know, like practices turn into parties and, you know, things like that. And it starts to devolve, and soon you realize you're not really getting anything done. And, I don't know, just learning how to do it in the most efficient and sort of actual, like real way, not just, because we don't really have, that's one thing, we don't really have a real music industry in Rochester. We have a lot of really talented musicians and a lot of really talented bands, but there wasn't a lot of examples of, like, you know, it's not like Nashville where
right.
like
Okay.
everyone knows how to drill a rock band practice.
Yeah.
You know, like all these things, like all of the details, because everyone's there. It's a profession there. In Rochester, it was still, people still kind of think of it as
engineering.
Know. Well, yeah, it's like
tech.
Everyone has a kid that plays in a band. So, you know, like everyone's like, oh, that's nice that you play guitar, you know.
Right. But there's no formal. Yeah.
You're right. There isn't a lot of like, oh, this is how you go from being in a band with your buddies in your basement to like being able to do certain things, you know, being able to tour and, you know, make a record, you know.
Totally get it. It's funny you mentioned Nashville. Yeah, when I first started the show, most of my guests were out of there, and it was probably I don't know, 150 episodes, like almost 100% in Nashville, and I met a lot of great people there. And I was up there, I guess, about 6 months ago, just hanging out, and there was a guy named Pat Bergeson. Pat played with Chet Atkins, tremendous player. He's toured all over the world, and it was a show. It was late at night. It was a little guitar event, and it was just like 5 hours into this thing. And this guy has played in front of stadiums, and there was probably 10 people left in the audience. And I told him this after the show. What an example of professionalism. Like, the guy got up there and he goes, "Hey, listen, I want to thank everybody for coming to the show." I mean, just, you would have thought there was 500 people in there. And like what you just mentioned, that's professionalism, that you can go up and be confident enough and still keep in mind that, hey, I'm in the service business. I need to provide this service. And that takes a lot when there's 10 people in there and the gig's been going on 5 hours.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, so I understand exactly what you said, because there's so many examples of guys like Pat there, man.
Yeah, I mean, we've played our fair share of shows to the bartenders, you know.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
really, that first tour that you mentioned, I don't know, probably under like 150 people total throughout the entire tour, you know, like we're at the
Oh
shows.
my
Like
God.
it was empty room tour, you know. But you do it every night, and I think that's a huge growing opportunity. And if I could make one recommendation to any like young musicians and bands, is tour with your friends as soon as you can for as long as you can, because that's when you start to know if it's something you really want to do, when you're playing show after show to bartenders.
Yeah.
And it's it trial by fire. You get so much better so much faster. So like you can drill it in your practice space till you're blue in the face. It's totally different when you're setting up, tearing down every night, doing all of like the little things. Total game changer.
Interesting. So how did you handle those? How did you not get discouraged in those early gigs? Or even if you were discouraged, which I would get, how did you get through it?
Well, it's so fun, especially, you know, you're in just traveling around with your buds, you know, it's fun. Even when it's not fun, it's still fun, you know?
Okay. I get it.
So, you know, if you can do it. And it's not always going to be, you know, it's nothing like is in the movies. It's nothing like it, you know, crazy stories. It's usually kind of boring, but it's still fun. You know, it's even like the goofy jokes that you make about seeing the different truck stops. You know, there's just like little things that like, it's just time spent that it's really fun and rewarding, and highly recommend it.
Man, I think what you just said is so important. It's nothing like what's in the movies. I think most things are not, you know, I would agree. It's
Yeah.
like nothing is like what it is in the movie, you know.
Yeah.
The hot chick doesn't generally come in and drop her muscle bound boyfriend for you.
No.
You know, the parent that was an asshole their whole life doesn't suddenly say, I regret it, I love you. You know,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. I think that's really good. You know, I thank you for saying that, because I think people do need to know that.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I had nothing really real to add.
No, it's just so true, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's like what we talked about before we started recording. You know, Facebook is the edited version of the movie.
Yeah.
And I think it goes to what you're saying here, man. Okay, so King Buffalo, you guys have put out 4 records in just 6 years, and now you're about to drop, I know 2 EPs, it's still 4 records, and you're about to drop your 5th. I think that's really ambitious, especially in today's day and age where you're not getting paid to sell records anymore. And I was curious what drives you to keep making new music. And are you guys all self-funded? Are you on a label now, or?
No, we are not on the label. We do it all ourselves as of right now. We do have, we have a label as far as European stuff goes.
That's Nick's
Stickman Records.
Stickman,
yeah.
Right. Okay.
And they're phenomenal. But as far as in the States goes, we're completely on our own. For now, you know,
right.
Those, you know,
man, anybody listening, if you are distributing, you know, great hard rock, hook up with these guys. They're an excellent band. Sean is I mean, you can hear he's a real professional guy, and their music is wonderful, and it's well done, well engineered. And anyway, so just, you know, hook up with Sean on Instagram. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm trying to hook you up, man, because I believe in you guys. You're such a good band. I love listening to your music. You put really long songs together, and there's good stuff going on. It's not like, I mean, sometimes people put long songs together, and you're like, man, it's an 8-minute song. It's about 6.5 minutes too long, but it's not, right? I mean, it happens, right? But
I appreciate that.
No, man, your music is great. You know, when Nick turned me on, he said, hey, do you know King Buff? I'm like, no, let me check him out. And I listened. I said, right away, I said, yeah, man, I want to meet that guy for sure.
Cool.
And then I think I even sent you a text when I was going through your account, like, this is awesome. I'm so happy I got turned on to you. So
yeah, well, thanks, Nick.
Yeah, and seriously, if you are someone that distributes records here in the States, you know, hook up with Sean McVay from King Buffalo. Anyway, so go ahead, tell me about what's driving you guys to work so hard, and make all this new music.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like the fun part, right? Is like coming up with stuff to play. You know, I actually tend to think we move kind of slow. So,
Oh, dude, 6 years, 5
yeah,
records.
yeah.
No,
I mean,
that's
I
not,
really
that's,
appreciate that. So maybe, maybe I'm just
that
being
is,
hard on it.
that's not, it's good that you're hearing this. 6 years, 5 records. That's not slow at all.
Well, I really appreciate that.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, we
great.
just, we are, as you can probably tell by a lot of like the music, is a lot of it is just formed by just sort of jamming.
Yep.
So it's really like, we'll just play, we'll just be in our studio for 3 hours and we'll just jam, and we'll have 3 hours of jam. I'll take them home, go through and pick through, be like, hey, that was cool, that sucked, in a kind of jigsaw stuff together.
Yeah.
So it's fun. I mean, jamming's always fun on its own, and
Sure.
then we can make something out of it, just rewarding.
But you got a booking agent.
Yeah.
Is that just for Europe, or is that for the States and Europe?
We have a separate booking agent for both places.
All right. So that's it, man. Distribution. They got a booking agent here, domestically, foreign. All right. Enough said. Were you always into the kind of music that King Buffalo plays?
Yes and no. I mean, I grew up, I mean, I guess it would depend on what we define what the music we play as. We grew up with all the classics, Pink Floyd, Zeppelin, Hendrix, Sabbath, those were, huge in my life. And then I also, I had a huge nu metal phase, grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s. So,
Sure.
I definitely had my share of Korn records and stuff like that. System of a Down, Rage Against the Machine, both those, Evil Empire, Battle of Los Angeles.
Great records, man.
I played along to those records, like learned all the riffs, played along to them when I was, 15, 16, loved every second of it. So, yeah, I mean, that was definitely the foundation of my musical sort of experience. And then, like I said, when I went to college, I started getting into different things, more sort of like new wave and sort of indie rock.
Mm-hmm.
But also I got into a lot of different hip hop, and I was actually like working with a lot of rappers in different times, like amateur stuff, but
yeah,
got into a lot of hip hop. And actually Dan, our bass player right now, that's like his favorite kind of music
is hip hop. Interesting.
Yeah. So like,
you'd never know from listening to King Buffalo that you guys are heavily influenced by hip hop. I can tell you that much.
Yeah. I mean, we all have very different influences, I think,
sure.
Which is kind of a good thing for us.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I don't know. I just, at this point now, I'm probably more into sort of experimental, like electronic sort of stuff and ambient music, as opposed to, I don't really seek out a lot of new, like heavy rock music.
It's interesting you say that, because you kind of, a good chunk of your stuff, you can call it like ambient hard rock or ambient psychedelic hard rock to an extent.
Yeah. I mean, the phrase that I sort of came up with when we were doing Orion, which is our first full length, was I wanted it to sound like a fuzzy blanket, so like a warm fuzzy blanket. So kind of comforting, but, a little abrasive, but, with some space thrown in there. I wanted to be more of like not like an active, like fist pumping experience, but more of like a put on headphones and maybe melt into your couch experience. I
think that was a very accurate, because it has an edge, which I love, which is what I like. One of the many things I like about King Buffalo, it's got an edge, but it is like a fuzzy blanket, man. It's not like total stoner. It's, it does have an edge to it, which is great, which is cool.
Thank you.
No, man, thank you for making it. It's just a joy to listen to you guys. You said something there I was going to ask you about. I forgot. Anyway, okay, tell me about, you're working on a new EP. Talk about that.
Yeah, we're working on an EP now. And I don't know, it's definitely kind of like, it's hard. I'm like so wrapped up in it. I've literally been like slaving over it for the past month, that I'm like kind of a little bit insane. And had a few too many nervous breakdowns in the process.
Deep breath, man. Deep breath. Sean.
Yeah. It's it's definitely taken some risks, you know, some slightly different, you know, we're one of the things we've kind of been wanting to get better at. We still have our long epic songs. We have a couple of those. Then we were also, as a band, trying to get a little bit better at writing short songs.
Right.
Just kind of as an experiment for our own songwriting process, which we did a little bit on Longing to Be the Mountain, and we're exploring a little bit more with the new EP as well. But,
good.
Yeah.
Do you do most of the writing, or is it all collaborative with everybody?
Well, a lot of it is jams, like I said. So particularly the longer songs tend to be songs that were just started as jams, but there's a few more on this record that started out as I had a guitar part and a vocal melody and then brought them to the band.
Very cool.
So yeah, it should be exciting. We're, you know, it's the kind of thing that's like scary and apprehensive, and we hope people like it. And I can't wait for people to hear it.
Dude, I can't wait to hear it. Do you have any other side hustles going? Like outside of, I know you're doing engineering. You do a lot of mixing.
Yeah, I mean, I've done live sound for about 9 years now.
Oh, cool.
So I haven't been doing as much lately, just with the tour schedule, and you know, when I'm home, I don't necessarily want to spend my nights in a loud club. You know, when I've just been on the road for a while in a loud club every night. So I do, you know, live sound, you know, record, mix engineering stuff. That's pretty much it as far as side hustle goes.
Are you still in Rochester?
Yeah.
Oh, you are. So you came back. So everything's good there now.
Yeah. Everything, you know, it's, you know, barring the winters, which I actually kind of like, but it's
so cold up. I mean, I love if I would live upstate New York. It's the most beautiful place, mellow, safe, but it's freaking freezing, man.
It gets cold. I mean, you know, so does Minnesota and, you know, Chicago and, you know, New York City. All these places get cold, but no, it's really, it's a small city, so it's like the pace is good, and you know, it's really affordable to live. Me and my girlfriend own a house. We have a dog. We have a great life here. So
awesome, man.
It's a great place to call home base.
Do you know? I think he's in Vermont, but I thought he came from. How far is Rochester from Buffalo?
It's about 45 minutes to an hour.
Do you happen to know Rob? Sorry, 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, Buffalo is west, but pretty much straight line west.
Do you happen to know Rob Compa from Dopapod?
I've heard of Dopapod. I don't think I know Rob. Okay. I may have met him in passing, but I don't think I know. Off the top of my head, I can't pick his. Yeah.
Just curious. He's from Buffalo. I think he lives in Vermont now, but I know he's from Buffalo. So I know that when they're that close, it's not unusual that everybody knows everybody, especially in a smaller town.
Yeah.
It's a really nice guy too. Low points. What were some low points or dark periods you've had to deal with, Sean, and how'd you get through them?
You know, I think for the most part, I've had a pretty sort of good life. I mean, when I saw that in the questions you emailed me, and I guess one of the first sort of realizations, the first band that I was serious about after college, when we broke up, I kind of started to get really depressed, and I didn't really know why. It was just kind of, you know, really in a dark place for a few months. And then I started jamming again with some other friends. And then I was like, oh yeah, that's why I was like feeling crappy. And I've noticed, like, you know, if I have a long period of not playing music with friends or at shows, I start to kind of feel bad about myself. But that's a pretty easy one, you know, to fix.
Yeah. Thank God.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, seriously, man. That's like, you know, thank God when you get down, you know what it is, and you can go, you know, pick up a guitar and call two buddies and fix that, you know?
Yeah.
That's good.
And, you know, just standard, you know, mid-20s, early 30s life experiences of, you know, romance and breakups and fallout with friends and, you know, stuff like that, and coming to grips with maybe things from your past that you know, skipped right over. But
sure,
I'm a classic overthinker, so I don't know if I've ever like fully gotten out of the low points, but you know, I think just being honest with yourself and honest with people around you is probably the best thing that you can do with anything and anyone.
Yeah, especially being honest with yourself, man. I found that. It's funny that you say that, man. I was really bummed a while ago, and I had been missing gym workouts, oddly. And I mean, I've been doing that forever. And I went back to the gym, and I felt like $1,000,000, kind of like you picking up the guitar. It's really weird when there's things that you have going on that you don't realize how important they are to you, either emotionally, physically, whatever. And it was great that, like, I felt, oh my God, that's all I had to do is come back to the gym. Like I'm just not suffering from clinical depression or something like that, so that's good.
So much little things as far as like self-care, going outside in the sun, like it's like sometimes like, hey, I haven't really been out in the sunshine for a week. And then it's like, oh yeah, just get an hour in the sun, get that vitamin D, have a glass of water instead of, it's little things that add up to really make a huge difference.
Oh, totally, man. So are you workaholic then?
Yeah, I definitely used to be more so. I told you when I was working like the big box retail thing, I was also doing live sound at night, and I was in 2 bands at the time. So, I was pulling really long days. There was plenty of weekends where I slept 4 hours total in the weekend.
Wow.
Cause I would go from the day job, sound all night, day job in the morning, sound all, things like that. I've gotten better at that, and so I'm a little better. I've been able to find more of a balance.
Good.
Especially since doing the band full time, I'm able to like really like take some time off. The dog helps, like.
Oh, totally. What kind of dog do you have?
He's like a lab. He's a rescue dog. It's like a lab pit bull shepherd mix of some sort.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
man. I hate to go negative, but man, I haven't watched news or read a newspaper in as long as you've been alive, to be honest with you, because it's just negative. But I'm not like an animal activist, but I love animals, and we have pets, and I think that they bring really beautiful things into your life. And man, it's fucking crazy. I try not, now I'm gonna have to switch all the animal shit off, because people post, people just like, I didn't know that there's a whole community of people out there that just dump their fucking animal, and like, oh, we can't have them, dump them in the street. How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean,
just dump, like, hey, we're finished with you. Like, I didn't know that shit existed.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we got our dog. He was abandoned or stray. Like, we picked him up, and now he's in our home, and I can't imagine why anyone would dump him off. I don't know. It's crazy. The things people do and don't do are mind-boggling.
Yeah, it just blew. Like, how would that thought come into your mind to like do that? Even I don't even. I never considered myself naive, but I'm like, crazy. So
yeah.
Anyway, sorry to go dark, but it's just like awful to hear that, man. I love animals. In fact, some days I love animals more than people.
Yeah, it's pretty easy, right?
Yeah, they never fucking bother you. They never fucking bother. And ever. I've had dogs, cats. None of them have ever like come over and like did something remotely like irritating,
Yeah. Well, and at least if they do, it's usually out of love and niceness. It's not like, I'm going to try to piss you off right now just to.
Yeah.
I'm going to troll you, bro.
Right. Yeah, right. It's imagine, right?
Yeah.
God. Yeah. Dude, let's talk about gear for a little bit.
Sure.
I want to talk about your pedal setup too, but what's your go-to guitar right now, and what other guitars might round out your top 2 or 3?
Well, it's funny. All of my guitars would round up my top 2 or 3, because I only have like 3 guitars.
Awesome.
Well, I guess what I would say 3 real guitars. You can see I got a couple crappy acoustics behind me. One of them I picked out of the garbage. The other one I got at like a local store for like $50. It's like it's just a beater guitar.
Yeah.
They're just, whatever to dink around on. If I want to go play like at a campfire or something, if, I'm not worried that I'm going to like destroy a beautiful, J45 or something. Yeah. No. So my main guitar is a Hagstrom G2F
from Sweden. Those guitars, aren't they?
Yeah. It was a Swedish company. I got that at a local store here. It was brand new, but they, it's kind of that ugly gold sparkle that I think looks cool, but they couldn't sell it for years and years and years. So they marked it down, and I traded a crappy Epiphone Les Paul I got off Craigslist and paid very little for it, and then just like hot rodded it, put it all new tuners, pickups, everything, and now it's my main guitar. It's the guitar that I've been playing pretty much exclusively for a few years now. Excuse me.
So is that shaped like a Les Paul? That particular
kind of. It's almost like a weird bastardization of a Les Paul and a Gresh.
Okay.
It's got like a sort of faux F-hole cut into it.
Yes.
And it's a cool guitar. I mean, it was made in China. It's not like a fancy pants guitar by any means. But I'm pretty cheap when it comes to guitars. I used to have this theory that, I guess I still kind of do, because I haven't bought a guitar that costs more than this, but my rule used to be no guitars over $700. Because I wanted to have something that if it got lost or destroyed on the road, that I wouldn't.
Yeah, you're not devastated by it. Yeah, sure.
And I was always pretty broke anyway, so that was a pretty easy rule to honor.
That's like saying, I don't want to be high. I'm not going to be taller than 5'9". Wow, that's great.
Yeah. Perfect. So I had that, and my guitar before that was a Strat. It was the Fender Light Ash Strat, which was a Korean-made Strat. And I played that for years. Loved it, but then as I started to use more and more like heavy fuzz, I was finding that like the single coils were just too noisy. Yeah. So I ended up putting Filtertrons into it.
Interesting.
And I still play it every now and then. It actually is on the new EP quite a bit, but I don't really travel with it. But I might start to. Those are my two, like what I would call real guitars.
Sure.
My other guitar is another Hagstrom that I got off Reverb that has P90s in it. It's a Hagstrom Super Swede with P90s, but right now it just doesn't sound so great. I kind of need to change the pickups out of it, and then maybe I'll start using it.
You're only the second person I've interviewed who plays Hagstrom, and the first is a guy you might know. Do you ever heard of a band in England called Crippled Black Phoenix?
No.
Great band. Justin Greaves is the guy. Man, he's got a great story too, if you want to listen to a good interview. But their music is kind of like it's 8-9 minute songs. Really good band, Crippled Black Phoenix. But he plays
I'll
Hagstrom.
check that out. Crippled Black Phoenix.
Yes, really, really nice, very intense guy.
Cool.
And he loves it. What is your pedal and amp setup? Because I'm curious how you get your particular fuzz or distortion.
I've been playing a twin, or I also had a dual Showman Reverb. I still have it, a dual Showman Reverb, which is just a twin in head form, for years, for as long as I can really remember, been playing in bands seriously. So my amp, and that's what I tour with right now, is just my twin. I have a 73 twin. It's had a couple mods done to it, but nothing crazy. Okay. I run it at half power. So two of the power tubes are pulled. So it's, 40 watts, 45 watts instead of, 100 or whatever.
Which is plenty in any 90% of clubs.
Yeah. It's still too loud. I still get yelled at plenty of the time.
That's interesting that's how you load it. You just pulled out two of the tubes.
Yeah. It's a pretty common mod that I found online, and I had a buddy that tried it. But yeah, you do it. For anyone that tries to do it, you do have to disconnect one of your speakers, because it does change the impedance from 4 ohms to 8 ohms. So if you're going to do that, I actually put different speakers in so I can have the 212, but it's still 8, it's an 8 ohm load instead of 4 now. So everyone out there, don't pull 2 tubes out of your twin and then destroy your twin because you didn't disconnect one of the speakers.
Boys and girls, listen. Yeah, man. Thank you for telling people.
Yeah. So that's that's my amp. And then the pedal setup is it's expanded and contracted quite a bit over the years. My main fuzz is a Fuzz Face clone that I built off of BYOC. It builds your own clone.
Wow. Yeah. Dude, you are utilitarian. You're like the MacGyver of Stoner Rock, man.
I mean, I bought the kit. They send you the directions, and you just simple soldering. It's not that complicated.
No, but
it was fun.
But it's your work ethic, man. That's what it is. You're like utilitarian, like, man, I'm going to put this together myself. Boom, done.
Yeah. I'm really cheap. So it was cheaper than,
good for you.
Finding, it was the circuit that it's built off of, which they have different options, but I chose the one that was the fuzz that David Gilmore used on Time.
What's his store? What's his online store called?
Build Your Own Clone.
Clone, CLONE, or Clone, KLON.
Nope, CLONE.
Build your own clone.
And they have a ton of kits on there, which are pretty cool. I've built a rat clone that they had on there that I don't really use, but it's worked great. It's been my main fuzz for like 4 years now.
What if you can't solder and they solder it for you?
They do have pre-made. You can buy the pre-made pedals, but
you can. It just costs more money.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and so
I can't solder, and I can't put wires together. That's pretty cool. Soldering's not hard. I could actually solder.
Yeah, I mean it's a good skill to learn. I don't do it all the time, but I'm not great at it, but I'm able to stumble through a couple primitive pedal builds. I haven't built any of the crazy ones that are like really difficult. This is like there's one of their recommendations for like entry level. It's a simple circuit. So
the one you bought,
the fuzz. Yeah.
That's cool.
So I did that. My main overdrive is, which I've been using different iterations of their pedals. It's a company called Lightning Boy Audio, and they're actually out of Buffalo. And their pedals are all hand wired, tube overdrive pedals. He was even making his own capacitors for the pedals. It's really like high quality, handmade stuff. And the pedal I use is the Soul Drive 5. There's been a bunch of different versions.
Dude, so that's like boutique-y. How did you like?
Yeah, actually I met him when I was working at that studio years ago, and he hadn't started building. He was always like a gear tinkerer. He was a studio guy, but a gear tinkerer. And one day I saw he started up this company and he was making pedals, and I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. And I checked it out, and they're certainly not cheap, but like anything handmade, and
get what you pay for, man.
Yeah, you get what you pay for. And so they're great. And I have a handful of these different versions. He's got all these different overdrive pedals that all sound slightly different. And I got my first one from him and then really liked it, and then kind of kept getting different ones. And so now he's almost part of like the voice of the band at this point, really, because Dan has one as well that he uses. The bass player Dan has one that he uses. It's like a preamp. So Dan's amp is very clean, solid state, but then he has this tube preamp that gives it the character of a nice tube amp without having to lug around 100-pound bass head and stuff. So yeah, the Lightning Boy Audio, can't say enough for them. The pedals are some of the greatest stuff, and the rat gear is also really nice. We used he makes a channel strip like preamp. It's all over this new EP that we just used. It's really great.
Do you find you're using overdrive a lot and fuzz, or usually?
Actually, yeah. That was a trick I started using later. So like Orion, I wasn't using that, but Repeater and Longing to Be the Mountain, pretty much all of my fuzz tone is fuzz into the overdrive stacked.
Okay, so you got
and that's part of the reason. Yep.
So your fuzz is first or ahead of the overdrive. The overdrive comes after. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, because the fuzz face can sound a little brittle and shrill and through a really clean amp. So having the overdrive after it kind of fattens it up, eats up some of like the shrill fizziness and gives it more like oomph.
I got to put I have a Big Muff as a fuzz, which I really like. I don't usually put it through overdrive. I'm going to have to try that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the kind of thing. It's very specific to like pedal to pedal.
Right.
I had an issue. I think something was going bad actually on one of these overdrive pedals on the road, and so I needed a quick fix like immediately. Everything's fine now, but now I switched to a full tone OCD.
Right, and they sound great. Actually,
it didn't stack well at all.
Oh, it didn't.
No, it just like ate up the fuzz, and it was really. They were great pedals, but the stacking didn't work. So it's very much you know, it's the pairing has to be right, you know.
That's interesting. So it's like
yeah.
cheese and wine, or cigars and booze, or something like that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Anybody that influences your playing that people would be surprised to hear?
I don't know. I mean, like my all-time favorite guitar player is David Gilmore, which is pretty obvious.
On, man.
Yeah, you know, I think you know, you look at the comments on some of the YouTube stuff, and it's be like, yeah, you're just ripping off David Gilmore, and it's like, yeah, I am. He's the best.
I mean, like, it's funny because when you said my influences are Floyd, Zeppelin, Sabbath, and you said somebody else, I thought to myself, well, if you combine all that, that's what King Buffalo sounds like. But I don't think you are remotely ripping off David Gilmore.
I mean, I don't
remotely.
I'm not worried about it. If people think that,
no, fine. I know you're not losing sleep over it. You know, you're not getting. Yeah.
But I'm really into, you know, like krautrock from the 70s, and sort of like the English prog of the 70s as well. Like Steve Hillage is amazing. He's probably my
Steve Hillage. I've never heard of him.
Yeah, he played in Gong for a short time, but then he did a bunch of solo albums, and he's incredible.
Steve Hillage, thanks, man.
Yeah.
And when you say krautrock, you mean like Tangerine Dream or stuff like that, or?
Yeah. My favorite is a band called Agitation Free. They have a record called Second, and it's, I think, one of the best records ever. It's incredible. It's really beautiful and long, sort of instrumental, sort of beautiful guitar work. It's really good. I don't know the name of the guitar player, but yeah.
Agitation Free. Are they still around, or are they?
I don't know. I mean, this record came out in like the early 70s.
Okay.
And they did put out a couple records in the 90s, but I don't know if they're still going.
Yeah.
It's, you know.
You ever heard of Color Haze? C-O-O?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're a great German band, man. They have really, it was really funny because I had spoke to their guitar player, and I'm like, you know, I want to have him on the show. And he said, I'm not making fun of the guy, but it was a funny response. He said something like, I don't have a computer. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Are you a musician in fucking 2018? That's like saying, you know, you know, so I didn't ask. Maybe his computer was out of service and he didn't, you know, in all fairness to him, you know, I didn't ask him, how do you not have a computer? But I'm sure that's what it was. But it was just like, oh, okay. Or else maybe he just didn't want to come on the show, but he didn't know how to say no. I don't have a computer. Oh, yeah, right. But I love their music. Color Haze is a great band, man. Yeah, really good band. Give me your top 3 Desert Island discs. No particular order, just for this minute.
The easiest one, I would say Dark Side of the Moon is the best record ever made.
I agree.
I think anyone that like poo-poos on that record, you know, like Floyd fans that like, oh, poop, you know, it's like, yeah, it's because classic rock radio killed it, but that doesn't mean it's not amazing. So that's one. Desert Island record bands. I mean, I could just name 3 Pink Floyd records easily, but I don't know if that's like a hack answer. I mean,
dude, my number 1 and 2 is Dark Side and Wish You Were Here. So, you know, whatever you want to name is totally cool. But I agree with you. Dark Side. You crank that thing up and put some headphones on.
Yeah.
Nothing like that record.
Yep. Yeah. It's like the peak of. That's the pinnacle to me. It's just like, you know, like engineering, production, arrangement, performance, lyricism, like everything is.
I agree.
Everything was a moment in time that can't be recreated of perfection.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
I'd probably put. I don't know, this is a really tough question. Maybe like Battle of Los Angeles. I'm a huge Rage Against the Machine fan.
Great record.
Either that or Evil Empire. And then maybe I'd put Agitation Free second on there. It's tough because it's Desert Island, you know?
Yeah.
But I think I'd probably want to like mellow out if I'm just like on a remote desert island. So I think I'd put Agitation Free on there. I can't have like too many like rock records, like hard rock records.
You know, you always have the thinkers. They like well, if I was on a desert island, what I'd really,
Yeah.
I actually envision like the literal interpretation of that. But I get it, man. Totally. Dark Side, Battle of Los Angeles. I'm going to check out that Agitation for you for sure, man.
Yeah,
And
it's
Steve
great.
Hillage. It's going to be interesting to hear from you. What's your definition of happiness?
I guess this is going to be kind of like a weird dark answer, but I think like the definition of happiness is understanding you don't have to be happy. If that makes any sense. Like just the kind of like content in existing in whatever state you're currently in. I think like feeling the need to be happy or to be stimulated by happy things all the time, I think is misguided. I think, it's okay to be unhappy, and it's okay to, just relish in that,
Yeah, it sounds like
experience all the emotions. You don't have to be happy all the time, which I've struggled with myself. It just takes a long time to get comfortable being unhappy.
Wait a minute. That's almost as good as your "I want to get a job I hate" quote. Classics from Sean McVay.
Yeah, typical upstate New York cynicism.
No, I get it, man. It's like, there's a lot of pressure sometimes with that question. So I get it. Like, what does happiness mean? And sometimes it's just like, I don't know. Like I like to just sit down and do nothing with my wife on a Saturday night. And I'm really happy doing that, to be honest
absolutely.
with you. Like literally just doing nothing, having no responsibility for that moment. I'm like, or like when my kids come over for a barbecue or something and just doing nothing spectacular that's to be happening. So I get that answer, man.
Yeah. There's a million ways to experience happiness, and I think it changes from moment to moment and person to person.
I agree with you, man.
So,
thank you for being honest. You have any non-musical superpowers? I think you do, Sean.
I guess like kind of like a joke answer would be I'm like really good at like watching a movie and then be like like recognizing someone, be like, that person was in that movie, like some total like C-list, like no one knows that person.
Yeah.
Never know. I'm like, oh yeah, they were also in these million other movies. I don't know. It's weird. I've always been good at that. I guess that's a superpower. I never trained for that or anything. Just God-given talent.
I envy you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, really practical. No, I don't know.
I thought you were going to say, I always know what happens in the movie, because I'll be like 10 minutes into the movie and I don't know how she does this. My wife was like, oh, this is going to happen and that's going to, and it's like 10 minutes. I'm like, how do you know this? And that's her like superpower. So I thought you were going to say something like that.
No, nothing that would make that much sense or really be that like useful.
Sean, your superpower is great. Come on, man.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Do you have any hobbies outside of music?
Yeah, we mentioned earlier, I love fishing.
Yeah.
Really like any sort of outdoor stuff I'm, really into. Camping, kayaking, canoeing, any sort of stuff like that really is, I guess, what I would prefer to be doing if I'm not playing guitar. That's ideally what I would be doing.
Is that stuff you've always done?
Yeah, but I definitely got more into it later in life. It's the kind of thing I definitely grew up doing it a lot. Excuse me. And growing up kind of on the edge of nothing but farmland.
Yeah.
It's a lot of what my high school experience was on weekends was,
camping,
go out camping and drinking too much, that sort of thing.
That's so cool.
Yeah. But like now I'm definitely a little more into sort of, going on an expedition or even just spending the day like out on a small boat fishing and things like that.
That's really, I've always wanted to like camping, but see, I grew up in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm sleeping outside ever. When it was cold and we wanted to go drink, we'd go in a stairwell. I mean, it's awful, but that's what I mean. But I always wanted to like camping, but it's like, it's cold. It's like outdoor. It's really weird. A lot of it, I think, for that is a product of where you grow up.
Yeah. I do think maybe you got to go to the right place, like
the Bronx is not right for camping.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like it's the there's a lot of what people consider camping that I don't know if I'd really consider camping anymore. You know, like which makes, like if you're going to like a state funded campground with showers and stuff like that, like, yeah, that's nice. And it's easy when you have your kids and everything, you know, it makes sense.
Right.
But like, it's way different than going into a place that's like relatively untouched and it's super quiet, super peaceful. And, you know, like you're just in it, you know, like there's all sorts of birds. This is, the wildlife is really there and you're just kind of experiencing it. It's a totally different thing.
Yeah.
You know,
but
like
also like MacGyver, I get the feeling like, you know, you could like be in the desert and you'll find some mushrooms that would like give you so much. I mean, you just like, you're like a thinker like that, you know, I could tell there's certain things you're,
I mean,
super industrious.
I'd like to be as self-reliant as possible. So
Yeah.
anything I can learn to do myself, I like to try to figure out how to do myself.
Yeah, you could tell that's a great skill to have. I'd be like, man, get me to a supermarket. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you'll have to, you know, there's some beautiful places in Florida, right?
There is. And it's funny. My daughter goes to like festivals. And so she's sleeping outdoors and she sends us pictures and we're like, that is fucking gross.
Yeah. I mean, that's a different thing. Again, I don't know if it's camping, but it's, you know, it's with 100,000 people.
Yeah, right. I'm like, there's nothing exciting about that.
Yeah, that porta potty is a hellscape.
Yeah, I just assume going to bush, man.
Yeah.
A lot safer. Tell me, Sean, about a specific experience that changed your life or altered the way you think about things.
Oh man. I know I looked at this question when you sent me the questions ahead of time and I was like, oh man, I got to think of an answer. And I was like, I don't know. It's tough. I think probably studying abroad when I was in college was probably an easy answer for me. Just talking to people and just through traveling in general, seeing that people all over the world have sort of the same problems. And it's in, you know, everyone's pretty much relatively the same.
Yeah, man.
As much as anyone will try to tell you differently. You know, there are slight differences, but for the most part, person to person, people are pretty much the same. And learning that, even though I was in London, which is a very, you know, classic Western society, just the conversations I was having with people from all over the world would really kind of change the way I saw things.
That's great, man. That's really good.
Every time we go back to Europe, it's sort of the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
You end up having at least one conversation with some stranger there that's like, ends up being kind of poignant somehow.
Yeah, I love that. When we go travel, we never really do like the touristy. I mean, we might see something, but I always like to go out like to a local pub or something and just sit and talk with somebody there just to get a perspective.
For sure. It's totally different than, you know, going to Sandals.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that is totally different. But I like that. You know, I remember I got married in Hawaii and we just kind of eloped. And I remember my wife's not as adventurous. She's from a little tiny village in England. Like there's probably as many people as in my apartment building in the Bronx. It's my whole village. So, and I wouldn't say I'm like adventurous, but I like to go out and mingle. And we went to, so like I always find where the locals eat. So we're in Hawaii. So I went to go to this place and it was like just eating like fish they just caught with which I love. And I'm talking all, you know, she was horrified because she's like I said, jacket potatoes and beans, you know. I got so much out of that just hanging out with those people. I'll never forget that. It was just a very warm, organic, like real, you know, no one's going to put on a show. It's just like, that's why I guess I like doing these interviews, man, because musicians are so wonderful to talk to. They're so open and direct and honest for the most part. And I think that is for me, that like is very emotionally enriching when I can sort of tap into that with someone. It's like a gift. Like when I'm talking, you're giving me a gift, really, to be honest with you. That's what I like about this, man. So thank you. Thank you for your gift, Sean.
Yeah, thank you.
And last question, toughest decision you've had to make or most difficult thing you've had to do? And you might have talked about it already.
I guess it's, in hindsight, it's not really the toughest decision I had to make, but at the time it was one of the toughest decisions I had to make. And that was ending the band that I was in before King Buffalo to pursue King Buffalo. That was some of the most fun I've ever had playing music. But it was getting kind of obvious that we were, not really going to get beyond where we already were. Mm-hmm. We were struggling to make records. It was, our shows were really, really fun. It was amazing, but making the decision to move on from that to King Buffalo really sucked.
Yeah.
Sure. And I was, I had like lifelong friends in that band that I'd known since childhood that, it definitely took our relationship took a hit after that. It sucked.
They never got over it?
We eventually did, and we're cool now. But there was
cool.
definitely a time. There was some period of time where it was, a little awkward. So that was really difficult. Which I guess in the grand scheme of things is pretty good.
It is right. Yeah. Not like, I was in the hospital with this disease or whatever, but yeah, man, a tough decision is a tough decision. I get it. And a lot of people have had to make that decision. It's tough. And I'm glad you made it because you're a great band and you seem super happy. And I love your work ethic, man. I love your playing. And let me tell people what you got going on. Okay, so first of all, the band is King Buffalo. Go to the website, kingbuffalo.com, just like it's spelled. If you want to buy what I would encourage you to do is stream the music, unless you just want to go buy it directly. And if you want a good place to start, my personal favorite record is Longing to Be the Mountain. That came out in 2018. Like the whole record is 5 stars, as is Repeater, the EP. Songs, the title song, Longing to Be the Mountain, is great. Quickening is great, and Centurion on Repeater is great. Living Ghosts on that. What was that, like a single? No, never mind. That's not you. No, no. Sorry, that's not you. Never mind. There's another band with the words King and Buffalo, and it's a long story. Anyway, anyway, Longing to Be the Mountain's a great record, as is Repeater. Check them out. And if you want to buy the records, which I would really appreciate you do to support the band, go to kingbuffalo.com and send them in a note that you'd like to have them autograph the whether it's vinyl or CD, and they'll do it. And you could, I guess, message Sean on Instagram. His ID is Uranium Jesus. So just friend him on there, and then you can message him. Also, the band has a new EP coming out. Go to kingbuffalo.com, sign up to get on their newsletter list, and this way you'll get notified when the new record comes out. They also have a spring tour coming out. They'll be touring around the Great Lakes, and it's a pretty big West Coast tour where they're headlining. Do you guys post that either on social media, Sean, or on anywhere, or is it on the website?
It'll be on the website. There should be, by the time this comes out, there should be maybe a blog or two that posts about it. It'll be on all the social media platforms. So if you want to find it, it should be easy to find.
Yeah, right. And also, King Buffalo has a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter page. I would like everybody to go and like that and follow the band. Also, if you dig how the band sounds, Sean was the mix engineer on most of those records. Hit him up again on Instagram at Uranium Jesus if you're looking for some help for mixing your own records. Just leave him a message. Don't just say, "Hey man, I want to hire you to be on mixers." Just tell him what you got going on about your project so he can at least know you're legit. And that's it. Anything else I missed or anything else you want to promote?
No, I think that's it. Looking forward to getting this new EP out and, playing some shows in the spring, and hope to see anyone listening to this interview there. If you listen to this interview and come to the show, let me know.
Yeah, definitely. Are you ever down here? Do you ever tour here?
We've never been to Florida.
It's a tough
Florida,
state to tour.
Yeah, because it's so kind of out of the way. We would love to get there sometime. We're never going to say no, that we'll never play there. It's just logistically, it can be difficult.
And there's not like tons of venues. It's not like you can go down the coast and hit 5 venues and then up the West Coast and hit 3 or 4. They're really spread out. I totally get it, man.
I have heard that there is a growing sort of like psychedelic rock scene going on in Florida. But I don't know much details about it.
Well, a lot of bands play here. I live in Tampa, in Ybor City.
Okay.
It's YBOR. There's a ton of bands that play. They're all genre. In fact, you know who's playing here soon? Do you know Sepultura?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I had Andreas on the show. Great guy. But they're playing here. And you mentioned someone else, Korn. Another good interview I did. Ray Luzier, the drummer. Oh my God, that guy was awesome. Yeah. But yeah, there's kind of a scene here with all sorts of non-conventional music. But I don't know, and I would imagine maybe in Miami. I don't even know if Miami, because Miami is so like pop oriented. I don't know, but I know it's tough for lots of bands to tour here, and they don't come for that. And it's massive, the state. You can't get through it in a day.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is really just being able. You got to take so much days off around it, which
you got to get paid.
Yeah,
you got to make money, man. But anyway, if you come down here, please let me know. I'd love to come see your show, man.
Yeah, we'd love to get down there, and I'd love to meet you in person.
Anybody, promoters, I'm going to make you some money on this show. Get these guys booked. God damn it. Sean, thanks very much for everything. I really appreciate it. Again, everybody, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this interview, please share it on your social media channels. Thanks very much to Sean McVay for spending time with us. Please go check out King Buffalo. Great band, hard rock, just great guitars. He gets a great sound, man, and the mixing and production of the records is very high. Look forward to the new EP. And if you're in the West Coast or on the Great Lakes, go to kingbuffalo.com and come see him and see the show, and find him on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at King Buffalo. Most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it, Sean.
Yeah, thank you.